Ronaldo, in his private sanctum, understood this implicit threat better than most. He had built an empire not just on athletic prowess, but on an image of discipline, dedication, and familial devotion. He was a brand, yes, but also a man fiercely protective of his inner circle, particularly Georgina and their children. The quiet hum of his home was a sanctuary, a stark contrast to the roaring stadiums and flashing cameras that defined his public existence. It was in this sanctuary, under the deceptive calm of a sleeping city, that the first digital tremor struck, threatening to fracture the very foundations of his carefully curated world. The glowing screen in his hand, a commonplace object, transformed into a portal to a potential nightmare. Its innocuous pixels holding the power to ignite a firestorm that could consume everything he held dear. The message was succinct, chilling in its directness, carrying the weight of an implicit threat that transcended mere words. You have one chance to make this disappear. It wasn't a question. It was a demand, a gauntlet thrown down in the silent digital arena. His initial reaction was a practiced dismissal, a reflex honed by years of navigating the murky waters of public life. Hundreds of such threats, empty and baseless, arrived monthly, each one a phantom limb of the internet's darker corners, seeking to exploit or simply to disturb. But then came the second message, a swift, brutal confirmation that this was no ordinary digital detritus. A video, locked, the very word locked, imbued it with an ominous significance, suggesting a deliberate act, a hidden truth awaiting release. And beneath it, a number that wasn't just a sum, but a declaration of intent, $50 million, or it goes public. The figure itself, while astronomical to most, was not the immediate source of his terror. For Ronaldo, a man whose net worth was measured in hundreds of millions, the money was a practical, albeit painful, expenditure. No, the true chill that snaked down his spine was the chilling realization of what goes public truly entailed. It wasn't about headlines of a new transfer or a missed penalty. It was about something deeply personal, something that bore the potential to unravel the fabric of his carefully constructed home life. Someone, somewhere, had seen something they shouldn't have. Something that could tear his life apart, not on the field, where battles were won and lost with transparent clarity, but in the intimate, fragile space of his family. The narrator's voice, at this juncture, would soften, almost imperceptibly. It would acknowledge the universal truth that even legends, sculpted by public adoration and myth-making, are fundamentally human. Fame, for all its gilded privileges, offers no impenetrable shield against the primal fear of exposure, the terror of a buried secret unearthed, or the agonizing prospect of personal devastation. Ronaldo, in that moment, was stripped of his public persona, reduced to a man grappling with the chilling specter of his past, a past that had chosen this moment to re-emerge, not as a nostalgic echo, but as a venomous snake poised to strike. He was not the untouchable athlete. He was simply a man, alone with his phone, staring into an abyss that threatened to swallow his entire world. The quiet hum of the lights in his expansive living room, usually a source of comfort, now seemed to mock the tumult brewing within him. He placed the phone on the polished table, its glowing screen a malevolent eye, and ran his hands over his face, a gesture of profound weariness and disbelief. For years, he had been the very embodiment of control. The disciplined athlete whose every move on the pitch was calculated for maximum impact, the meticulously managed global brand, a paragon of modern masculinity and family values. His image was a fortress, built brick by brick through unwavering dedication and strategic public appearances. But that night, under the stark, unforgiving light of a digital threat, the fortress felt fragile, its walls suddenly porous to the insidious whispers of the past. He was no longer the legend, the icon. He was merely a man, wrestling with the terrifying ghost of his own history, a ghost that had returned with a price tag and a demand for public execution. Upstairs, Georgina, attuned to the subtle rhythms of their shared life, stirred in her sleep. A shift in the air, a disruption in the familiar harmony of their home, registered even in her subconscious. Ronaldo? Her voice, soft with sleep, drifted down the stairs, a gentle counterpoint to the storm raging in his mind. He didn't answer immediately. His primary instinct was to shield her, to preserve the illusion of peace, to protect her from the insidious dread that had just infiltrated his sanctuary. He wanted to spare her the knowledge that their meticulously constructed world was, at that very moment, under siege. But Georgina, with the keen intuition of a partner, appeared at the top of the stairs, her eyes still heavy with sleep but laced with a nascent concern. He forced a smile, a tired, brittle facade designed to deflect her apprehension. "Go back to sleep," he urged, his voice betraying a hint of strain. "It's nothing." A dismissal, a lie crafted in the urgent desire to protect. She tilted her head, her gaze piercing through his forced casualness. "You look pale. What happened?" she pressed, her concern deepening. He hesitated, searching for a plausible evasion, something that would satisfy her without revealing the true, devastating nature of the threat. "Just business," he offered, the lie tasting bitter on his tongue. Georgina, bless her trusting heart, paused. She wanted to believe him, needed to believe him. She trusted him implicitly, a trust he now felt like a lead weight in his stomach, knowing how easily it could be shattered. "Don't stay up too late," she murmured, a gentle admonition that underscored the domestic tranquility he was fighting so desperately to preserve. Then, like a dream dissipating, she disappeared back into the soft darkness of their bedroom, leaving him once more alone with the glowing screen and its ominous messages. The quiet of the house returned, but it was no longer peaceful. It was heavy with unspoken threats. Ronaldo looked back at the phone, its innocuous black rectangle now a conduit for fear. The message had been delivered from an unrecognized number, a ghost sender, but the tone, the chilling precision of the demands, felt deeply personal. This wasn't a random digital attack. This was orchestrated, targeted. Someone knew him, knew his vulnerabilities, knew the exact pressure points that would cause maximum damage. He opened the chat again, his fingers hovering over the keypad, a silent battle raging within him. "Who are you?" he typed, the words a desperate plea for clarity, for a face to attach to the faceless threat. For a long, agonizing moment, there was no reply. The silence stretched, amplified by the ticking clock of his own anxiety. Then the 3 dots appeared, signaling a response in progress, each dot a tiny hammer blow against his composure. The answer arrived slowly, deliberately, like a whisper intended to sting, to pierce through his defenses and remind him of a past he had perhaps tried too hard to bury. "Someone who remembers what you forgot." His breath caught in his throat, a sudden constriction that made it difficult to swallow. The phrase was a calculated strike, designed to evoke guilt, to conjure specters of forgotten moments, unacknowledged histories. He scrolled back to the video file, his finger trembling, suspended over the play button. Every instinct, every fiber of self-preservation, screamed at him not to open it, to maintain the blissful ignorance of what lay hidden within. But a deeper, more primal urge, a desperate need to know the exact nature of the weapon aimed at his life, compelled him forward. He had to know. The uncertainty was a torture more potent than any revelation. He tapped. The screen flickered, a brief moment of digital static, then came to life. The footage was grainy, distant, imperfect, as if shot surreptitiously from across a room. Yet, despite the low quality, he recognized himself instantly. The way he moved, the familiar posture, the distinct cut of his clothes, the unmistakable, easy smile he wore in relaxed, private moments. It was him, undeniable and unalterable. And then she appeared. Irina. The name, a whisper in the silent room, carried the weight of years, of a shared history that had once burned brightly before fading into the annals of public memory. The woman who had once known him better than anyone else, who had shared a significant chapter of his life. A woman whose physical presence had long been absent but whose shadow, for a time, had subtly lingered. The video was short, mercifully devoid of any overtly scandalous act. No explosive betrayal, no dramatic confrontation. It was just a quiet meeting, 2 people talking across a small, intimate table in what appeared to be a private restaurant. A moment of seemingly innocent conversation. But the timing, he realized with a sickening lurch, was everything. The world wouldn't care what they said. It wouldn't pause to analyze the nuances of their conversation. The mere fact of the meeting, the proximity, the shared intimacy of a private meal, would be enough. The public, fueled by insatiable curiosity and a penchant for dramatic narratives, would invent its own story, weaving tales of rekindled romance, secret rendezvous, and marital infidelity. He stopped the video halfway through, unable to bear the weight of the impending narrative. His throat went dry, constricted by a sudden wave of dread. He could already visualize the sensational headlines, the digital firestorm, the inevitable backlash from fans and critics alike. And most devastatingly, he could see Georgina's face, the moment she would inevitably see it, the trust in her eyes giving way to confusion, then hurt, then perhaps an irreparable crack. He whispered, "Why now?" The question was addressed to the empty room, to the cruel hand of fate, to the ghost of a past that refused to remain buried. The narrator's voice would lower here, almost in sympathy, acknowledging the painful irony of memory. Sometimes the past doesn't return for revenge, it suggests, but rather, with a more insidious purpose. To remind you what you never truly buried, what unresolved fragments of history still lie dormant, awaiting the right moment to surface and demand reckoning. Ronaldo typed again, his fingers moving with a renewed urgency. "What do you want?" he demanded, cutting directly to the heart of the matter, seeking to quantify the cost of his forgotten moments. The reply came instantly, confirming the cold, calculating nature of the threat. $50 million. You pay. I delete. Nobody ever sees it. He leaned back in his chair, his eyes burning with a mixture of anger, frustration, and a chilling recognition of his predicament. $50 million. It was an absurd sum, an extortionate demand, yet within the realm of his financial capacity. He had the money. The practical side of his mind, the strategic calculator, acknowledged that paying was a viable path to immediate cessation of the threat. Pay and the story in its current devastating form ends. But that was the insidious trap. Paying would also mean it would begin, for him, a new chapter of vulnerability, a silent capitulation to blackmail, a dangerous precedent set. Refuse, and he risked everything. The exposure, the public humiliation, the potential destruction of his family, his brand, his carefully cultivated life. He thought of Georgina, sleeping peacefully upstairs, her trust a fragile, precious thing he had vowed to protect. He thought of the children, their innocent faces, their unwavering belief in their father. He thought of the foundation of trust they had built, the quiet strength of their family unit, all threatened by a grainy video and a shadowy blackmailer. His jaw tightened, a muscle clenching in his jawline. He turned the phone face down, its glowing screen now hidden, and stood, his posture rigid with a defiant resolve. "No," he whispered to himself, the word a raw declaration against the unseen enemy. "Not this way." But even as he uttered the words, an insidious tendril of doubt crept in, a whisper of fear that undercut his resolve. What if Georgina saw it first, not from him but from the brutal glare of a public expose? What if the blackmailer, in their ruthless pursuit of payment, released it anyway, irrespective of his decision? And then, a more chilling thought. What if Irina was behind it? The woman who knew him, who shared a past, whose connection could be exploited for unimaginable gain. The narrator's voice shifted here, becoming quiet, uncertain, reflecting the profound moral ambiguity of his situation. The truth, it suggested, doesn't always hurt because of what it reveals, but because of who it might destroy in its wake, the innocent collateral damage of an unearthing. He picked up the phone again, his fingers moving almost independently, driven by an urgent, desperate need to control the narrative, to confront the threat directly. He sent one more message, a decisive step into the unknown. "Where do we meet?" The question was not a surrender, but a challenge, a declaration that he would not be a passive victim. He would face this threat head-on, even if it meant stepping into the heart of the storm, risking everything for the fragile peace of his family. And that brings us to the close of another captivating story from the life of Cristiano Ronaldo, a man whose journey on and off the field continues to inspire, surprise, and occasionally confront the unexpected. Here at WSN, World Sports News, we delve beyond the headlines, bringing you the intricate details and human elements behind the legends of sport. If you've been gripped by tonight's narrative, or if you simply appreciate an in-depth look at the lives shaping our sporting world, make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe to WSN for more exclusive insights, behind-the-scenes stories, and the kind of deep dives you won't find anywhere else. Join our community as we continue to explore the triumphs, the challenges, and the indelible moments that define the greatest athletes of our time. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on WSN World Sports News.